Hi, I'm Carrie with Yoga Home, and let's talk about pigeon pose. So, pigeon pose is one of those postures that I'm always so mindful of what's happening to our knees because we want to keep our knees really safe. And so, my biggest suggestion always is to have your knee outside your hip. Have a couple props handy, whether you have a blanket, a block, or a pillow, might be helpful as we come into this. So, oftentimes, right, we're told set your front shin up parallel to the top of the mat. Well, when I do that, if I set my shin up parallel to the top of the mat, I am going to set myself up to be resting on my hip. I don't have that, not only the mobility of my hip, but my knee architecture doesn't support that. So what am I going to do? I'm going to skip that cue of having this parallel. Instead, I'm going to think about drawing my knee outside the hip. So as long as your knee is outside your hip, you're coming into pigeon pose. You're getting that stretch. My shin is a little bit more on an angle. My back toes are going to be tucked under. Now, for sure, if your hands don't come down to the mat for this, you could use blocks to help find some lift. A common misconception is that you have to come all the way down and we're sinking into the posture. No, pigeon is about lift. All right, so having your shoulders square to the top, your hips square to the top. This front shin is coming not necessarily parallel, but at an angle that works for you. And now you've got this back leg. So pigeon is not just about the front hip, it's about the back leg as well. So I have my toes tucked under so that then I can lift the knee and start working it back. As I start to do that, and I get all the extension that I have there, then I could untuck those toes. Now, let's talk about how you use props in this pose too, because a lot of times we're told, okay, if you have a gap between your seat and the earth, bring a prop there. So for sure, I'm gonna switch to the other side. For sure, I could do that, but there are other ways that you could use this too, right? So not only perching yourself up here, what would it be like to really use the blocks in your hands to support you? Again, to really move things forward. If you're using this prop, just make sure again that you're not just compensating and leaning into it, that you do in fact still have that lift. Now, often we'll come into pigeon pose from downward facing dog. So let's look at that. You're in down dog. We'll usually cue lift a leg high, right? And then draw it through. Here is a perfect place to really check and make sure the knee's coming outside the hip as we come into that. Walking those back toes back, lifting the heart forward, right? Find some engagement and pulling up. That's why having that back knee down sometimes can help you to create that lift up. Having that back foot flat, you can even push into that foot, and then you'll really feel the stretch along the front of that leg. Keep this length. Then, if you're coming into resting pigeon, bring those hands forward, position your shoulders forward, and start to melt the heart down. Again, this could be a great place for maybe a block, maybe a pillow, so that you can even just set the hands in more of a resting posture to receive the posture. Pigeon is here to be of service to you, not for you to be of service to pigeon. So you don't always have to come into that, well, if pigeon doesn't work for you, come into figure four. No, use your props, let them help you. All right, so I'm Carrie, just some tips on pigeon. Thanks for joining me.